All right. Best of mornings to all of you. I'm excited to be here. Are you? Excellent. Okay. I'm Grigory Melnik. I'm the head of product for server and tools, which means I manage people, who manage products, who manage data that you guys use. So I came to MongoDB about half a year ago. And when I arrived, I realized the immense popularity that MongoDB has. What's happening?
Presentation mode.
Oh, that's what it was? I didn't even pay attention to that. I'm looking over there. So I didn't realize how popular it was. You know, 30 million downloads, 10 million just in the past year. Very, very high NPS score, very active community, thousands of customers. But you know, initially I was a little bit skeptical, trying to understand what's really the reason behind that level of popularity and love, and that many raving fans. So it took me a while and a lot of conversations with you, with customers, with users, to truly understand what is it that MongoDB gives you that makes it so popular. And to sum it up, it's actually the underlying document model that Sig had introduced to you. And that's at the heart of everything that we do. We believe documents are natural. They're natural for humans because, again, that's how we think in terms of objects. They're natural for programming languages because, you know, whatever language you've got, most of them have some sort of a hierarchy or object structure or dictionaries, whatever that language may have. They're also natural for systems where you would want to keep, you know, data that belongs together, right? The documents are also versatile. I can model anything I want with documents. I can just go and model JSON payloads. I can model tabular data if I want to. I can, and relational data if I want to. I can model rich text data. I can model key values. I can model graph data with, you know, sophisticated deep hierarchies and nodes and edges and all of that. So extremely flexible, extremely versatile. Documents are also flexible in a way that we can adapt easily. Your data model can evolve. You don't have to do, you know, the type of the update schemas that you would do in the SQL world, and it's tough to do at the real time. And documents are congruent with how people are developing these days, whether you're using Scrum or Lean or less or what have you. It's very much aligned with the speed of modern application development. So the speed to market, the speed to deliver, you have much less code that you need to write. So altogether, be natural, versatile, flexible, and fast is something that constitutes this whole message from me to you, which is we want to increase your developer productivity. We want to make your job easy. We want to get out of your way and take care of managing data so that you can manage your code and write your applications and write your value to the customers and to your businesses. We don't want you to be spending time writing the low-level plumbing. And you know, just to give you a couple of customer proofs, when I talk to one of our customers, Expedia, for example, they have hundreds of applications built on MongoDB, including one that represents a traveler's graph, a very, very sophisticated graph that includes, you know, all kinds of schedules and reservations and everything, and then they use that to make recommendations for your future travel. Another customer, which is MetLife, they've actually tried to build a single customer view use case for a couple of years on the legacy RDBMS relational store, and that effort failed. They migrated to MongoDB, and they were able to actually build that system in 3 months. So again, think about it. Now, what I'm going to do in the bulk of my time allotted here, I'm actually going to give you a quick lap around the new features, new capabilities of the server that was shipped, Server 3.6. I'm going to talk about some of the tools as well. And then I will wrap with Atlas and the customer appearance, talking about Atlas as well. So just too many screens changing, and I don't know which one to look at. It's a cool setup, but it's a little bit distracting. Sorry. So it's only logical, since I've just emphasized the importance of the document model and everything that we do, it's only logical if I start my server tour with the features around the improvements and expressiveness related to the document model. So the first up is the expressive dollar lookup. And again, those people who are brand new to MongoDB, don't worry. I'm going to try not to lose you too much. Just think about it as joins. In fact, again, a couple of years ago, well, not a couple of years, in 3.2, we've introduced the dollar lookup operator, which was a very basic, simple way of doing equi-joins. And in 3.6, we're making it a little bit more powerful. So, well, actually, not a little bit, quite a bit more powerful. So let's take a look at the example. Think of a e-commerce system. Think of a system where you have orders and reviews and rankings and stuff like that. So I have a very, very basic orders collection here with line items. Imagine that I would like to display my orders on a website, and next to each line item, I would like to display an average ranking for that item, right? So again, the rankings are stored in a different collection called reviews, so you can think of it that I would need to do some sort of joining and then calculate the average. So the way you can do it now in MongoDB 3.6 is this. So what happens here is that I am going to do a dollar lookup, then I'm going to filter by the unique product IDs, then I'm going to do a dollar group and take the average. The important piece here is that I have a join with a subquery underneath. And that subquery is actually very much just like a regular aggregation pipeline. And I can have anything that I do in the regular aggregation pipeline in here. This gives you a super, super powerful way of building your queries. The next piece that is super important to the document model is arrays, and how we handle arrays and how we deal with arrays. So we're improving your abilities to manipulate arrays in 3.6 as well. So going back to the same example that I had before, think of orders, shopping cart, what have you. Well, in this case, orders. Let's say that in this system, we kind of screwed up the fulfillment, and we haven't shipped this order, and now I would like to offer 20% discount on all of the items here, right? So now, before 3.6, I had a couple of ways of doing this, right? I could have taken the document out in my client side, manipulate the code, right? Manipulate the document, and then push it back in, right? Yeah, it kind of works, but then again, it's now in the application stack, not in the application layer, not in the database, and then you have to handle consistency and lock-in and all of that. So perhaps not the best approach. Even though, again, I'm sure your code is awesome to handle that. But why, right? The other way, of course, is to go and do multiple updates, but then you need to figure out how many of them you need to do and then run those. So again, not so great, somewhat annoying. So in 3.6, what we're doing, we're adding the ability for you to actually update all or some of the elements in the array just with a single statement. And the database takes care of the consistency and all the lock-in that's necessary, okay? So take a look. Here's how you would do it in a single line in MongoDB 3.6, right? So I'm just multiplying all of the elements, and you can notice the dollar sign braces notation, and I'm increasing the price by 0.8, thus effectively giving 20% discount. Now, what if we haven't screwed up as badly, and we shipped some of the items in the order, but not all of them, right? And I don't want to give the discount on those items that I already shipped, So I just want to do a selective update to the arrays. If previously you've seen how with a single statement I can do the update to all of the elements, now I can actually do that selectively. We introduced the concept of array filters, okay? And now you can see that I can specifically put a conditional indicated that for those items that are not shipped, you can see array filters right there, I will add that discount. This is good and powerful, but this is not where it ends, because so far this was still pretty straightforward. While it's an improvement, but still, this is just depth 1, right? It's not very, very hierarchical yet. What if we get deeper level of nesting? Can we do something like that as well? Yes. So think of manipulating arrays and updating them using the array filters when you have nested arrays. So imagine that you are building some sort of a quiz system for MongoDB University, right? And those who are paying careful attention here will see that there is an error in one of the lines, so I'm going to fix it. So here's how I can actually apply 2 filters, and in the same statement, the same operation, actually filter on both the question, the type of question, and the answer, and modify it in a single statement. This was probably one of the top 3 asked and anticipated features in 3.6. So again, for those people who are not appreciating the excitement of mine around this one, you probably haven't hit the pain of manipulating arrays before. So there you have it. The arrays, the array updates in and array filters in 3.6. So the next thing that is related to the document model that I am going to talk about after I introduce us, of course, there's a dedicated talk on the aggregation pipeline and all the new powerful ways that we're introducing in the aggregation pipeline in 3.6. I said we'll talk about it today. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is schema. And no, it's not a joke. And no, it's not something that is a misnomer, because I know some of you may say, wait a second, when MongoDB or 10gen marketed MongoDB database, 7, 8 years ago, you guys were all saying you were schemaless, and what do you mean there is a schema? Well, yeah, we did, but that was a mistake. That was kind of nonsense, because at the end of the day, if you think about it, the indexes are structured. The MongoDB itself is typed. There's tons of types, right? And if there are types, that means that there's a schema. The applications, of course, are, have schemas as well. So we kind of went from schemaless to flexible schema to dynamic schema, all kinds of wordsmithing. But the bottom line is that there is a schema in your data model, right? And a couple of years ago, we introduced a mechanism to do the validation of that schema. Because in the old days, if you think about it, since it's so flexible and anything goes and you have a polymorphic nature, you can throw anything in, then it's very easy with that flexibility to end up with chaos, right? So, and those were the days where we didn't even have Compass. Compass, as Sig showed you, is a very nice GUI kind of intuitive tool for you to explore your data, to get a feel of your underlying schema. It does very nice schema discovery and visualization based on sampling. Super powerful, super great. Free, by the way, in the community edition from December now, right? So, but at that time we didn't even have that. So it's like, how do you introduce some order in the messy business? So we introduced the document validation. And it allowed you to specify some rules, and that was great, but it wasn't doing quite everything that people wanted. So with 3.6, what we now introduced is JSON schema validation. So JSON schema is a standard, as some of you know. It's a way to describe your JSON schema, JSON document rules in JSON, of course, unsurprisingly. And it's a standard, which means that you can apply it, equally in MongoDB and in other parts of your stack. So take a look at the sample of the JSON schema applied to that example of orders that I've showed you before, that snippet. So again, you can define the structure, you can define the types, you can define min-max, you can do a lot of usual stuff that you would expect. And people, who's done schemas before would find this very familiar. Now, the important thing that I'd like to highlight is that with the JSON schema, you can make it, your schema as flexible as you want to or as rigid as you want to. Notice that additional properties set to false. This is where you do not want to allow the flexibility, and you want to have a little bit tighter control over what gets added into your collections. So now, continuing the theme of making your life easier and making you more productive, I'm going to talk about the new feature introduced in 3.6 called retriable writes. So MongoDB has always been highly available, and we have the mechanisms in place to handle failures in the clusters. If one of the nodes goes down, there's an election that's occurring, and then basically you move on with your day. But what happens if you're actually doing a write at that time? What happens again? You're sending some data, and then you incur a network failure, or again an election happening because one of the nodes is down. Now, if that write is idempotent, right, something like an insert, yeah, it's safe to repeat and nothing, you're not in trouble there. And again, you still have to do it yourself. You still have to actually implement that code in your client side, which again, I'm sure it's awesome, but why should it be you doing that, right? Now, the other challenge, of course, is not just that it adds more effort. What if it's a little bit more interesting operation? What if it's something like a counter increment? Then it gets much harder. It gets much harder to figure out, what do you increment? And do you even know if the write succeeded or not? So what we're doing in 3.6 is making your life easier by automatically retrying. So we have the native retriable logic support in 3.6. And it's pretty easy to do. So if you look at how you do it in your driver's code, all you need to do is just to enable your retry writes to true, and then the rest of the code doesn't change, because the rest is pretty much like how you used to exercising your database operations through the driver. So of course, again, in order for this to work, you need to be on 3.6, and you also need to make sure that you upgrade your drivers. The important thing here is that the database itself handles and makes sure that handles the retries and make sure that it only happens once, and you end up being kind of blissfully unaware of what's happening behind. Now, in order for this to actually work, we've implemented the concept of logical sessions. And what happens is that with every write, you get a unique session ID, and then the database can actually check, and if the write didn't occur, it will retry, and if it did, it's not going to do that. So it's all magical, and I know, again, some of you love magic, others don't love it. So again, the choice is yours, but why should you be wasting your time building this kind of plumbing when the database can provide it for you? Remember, everything in 3.6 is about, getting out of your way and letting you, do your job easier. The next bit that I'd like to talk about is about friends. And I know in this audience nobody's done it, but you probably have friends who have inadvertently exposed some of the data to the internet by not setting up the firewalls properly and just not using the auth and all of it. Yeah, some of you, some of the friends, right? So with 3.6, what we're doing, we're actually locking it down somewhat. So by default, we're only listening to the local host, and this is the right thing to do, because friends don't let friends expose data on the internet. So it is a minor annoyance when it comes to reconfiguring, switching that configuration setting so that you can now listen to internet if you need to. But it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. So it's localhost by default only. Now, last piece of the 3.6 tour that I'm going to include in my keynote but definitely not least, it's probably the most exciting, leaving the best for the last, is what is known as change streams. Again, Sig had mentioned the change streams briefly in his warm-up presentation. Now, think about the modern needs of development where you want to make your app more reactive, where you want to trigger some action in your application based on something that happens in the database. We actually always wanted to do that. We wanted to introduce some way of allowing you to handle or act outside of the database based on something that happens inside of the database. And that's effectively what we are introducing in 3.6. So now, again, you can register or subscribe for the notifications, and then in a fully classical reactive style, you can trigger some actions. And the important thing here is that it doesn't matter what kind of application you're building, whether it's an IoT, whether it's a web system, whether it's serverless, what have you. The change stream API allows you to watch for all or specific types of events, and you can put a lot of qualifiers in there. And you can consume those events either directly or through a message queue or through a service, backend service, such as MongoDB Stitch, for example. So change streams are also resumable. So in case of a failure, you can reuse the token to restart from where you left off. And they are also shard aware. So they will work in the sharded collections quite nicely. Ali, who is here, actually before I talk about Ali, here's an example of how you get this working. So you can see that in this case, I'm watching the collection orders. I am interested in the types of operations which are insert and replace. And even more, I also want to only get notifications for those that ship their orders to the zip that starts with 92, which I believe is your area. Correct? So again, and you can see how flexible and powerful this is. I can put any kind of qualifiers in there. And then I just put the infinite loop around the cursor, and off you go. And you get all the right notifications. So Ali, who I mentioned earlier, will give you a deep drive run on the change streams. That's her feature. She was product managing it. And also, since I mentioned Stitch, even though I don't have time to do any demo or go deeper into Stitch, but we do have a dedicated Stitch talk today, also by the product manager who is driving Stitch. So you've got the best speakers you can think of. They can answer all of your questions. So to sum up the server overview, what I would like to remind you is that I've probably, again, mentioned, 10 or so features of MongoDB 3.6. In fact, the release is so huge, there's like 300 of them. So there's no way that I could have covered all of them. I tried to put in the bucket some of the most prominent new features that we have brought for you. The most important thing to remember is that we're trying hard to improve expressibility. And again, this is something that is being required and anticipated by the community. For those people who are not quite aware, we are an open source company. MongoDB is an open source database. We thrive on the community. We take all your tickets and JIRA items and comments and pull requests, if you have, very, very seriously. So again, most of what we do is driven by what the community needs. So expressibility, analytics, application availability, operations, and real time are the main themes of 3.6. Any additional feedback that you guys have, please send to us. I encourage you to check out the release notes. I encourage you to check our awesome documentation. In fact, I'm so proud of it. It's where you have the live documentation. You can actually can do snippets of the code right inside your doc page. You don't even have to install anything. It will allow you to run it. It will provisionally cluster somewhere in Atlas, and we'll run it, and then it will dispose it. So you can actually do all kind of experimentation without installing anything directly from your browser. And we also put together a MongoDB University course dedicated to 3.6 release. I highly encourage you to check it out. So the next item, I'm going to talk about tools, enterprise tools. And we have a few. The first one is what Sig had shown you. Again, if you haven't played with it, check it out. It's very good. I know I'm biased, but when I came to MongoDB and I was going through a bunch of tutorials and playing and learning, MongoDB Compass was super helpful. Not only it allows me to do like basic CRUD operations, it allows me to manage indices, it allows me to do the explain plan visualizations, it allows me to do some exploratory data analysis and schema analysis. So in 3.6, in addition to introducing some richer features that helps, with your query building and your explorations, I've already mentioned the community edition. This is the first time we're shipping a community edition that's free. In fact, it's actually packaged with the 3.6, so the installer, if you're going and installing 3.6 server, it will ask you at the end, do you want to also install Compass? And if you say yes, it will proceed to install it for you. The other important thing about Compass is that we made it extensible. So we've introduced the plugin API that actually allows you, the community, to, well, first of all, you can, of course, go and take any of the functionality of Compass that is packaged as a plugin and either repurpose it or modify it the way you like, or you can actually build your own plugins that are hot redeployable. All you need to do is just drop them in the right folder, and Compass will pick them up and load them for you. And that way you can customize your Compass environment, making it more IDE-like. And of course, if you are proud and you find that your plugin is super helpful and you choose to share it with the rest of the community, we would only encourage that, and we would only thank you for that. So those are the two main things about the latest release of Compass. But then there are some features that, again, make it easier for you to use it, right? Things like you're used to in your IDEs, like autocomplete. It's there. Things like the query history. It's there. We even introduced a new layout, a new view, where you can actually either see the document view or you can see a tabular view. Super powerful, because we're doing it in the way where we're not flattening the docs. So there's some ways, some very nifty UI elements that actually allow you to see your data in tabular format without flattening it. Next up is business intelligence, and no, this is not a joke. When we talk about business intelligence, we actually mean deriving insights, deriving value from your trapped data. It's phenomenal how much data is out there and how little people are making use of it. So some time ago, we have, actually, forgot about this slide. Now, when we're talking about deriving insights from the data, very often it would come with some sort of a data visualization, some kind of data viz, right? So if you guys can think of data sets that may be statistically identical, but they're actually different, can any of you think of it? There's a very well-known example of the Anscombe quartet, which shows you the 4 data sets. They're statistically identical. The mean and the variance is the same, the linear regression, the coefficients of determination, all of that stuff is identical. But any human can actually see that they are different. And the reason you can see that is because of the visualization, right? So our priorities are to make it much, much, much more easier for you to visualize data stored in MongoDB. So some time ago, we shipped BI connector. And BI connector is meant for you to use your tool chain, use your tools, BI tools, traditional tools like Tableau, like Power BI, like MicroStrategy, right? Click, what have you. And what it does, it basically translates the SQL into the aggregation pipeline commands and is doing some crafty mapping underneath. The latest BI connector that we shipped at the same time with the server actually would come with improved performance, and it has a better security authentication model, and it's actually much easier to install. However, there is one problem with this approach. The problem is that when you deal with documents, and then you have to go through that process of mapping it all to SQL, you are flattening your rich data structures. You're flattening, and basically you're losing a lot of the benefits of your documents. For example, those tools don't work very well with the polymorphic documents, right? Also, they don't work with the arrays very nicely either, especially if you want to do the analytics on the individual elements of the arrays. And at the same time, you also want to do it as a unified, as an aggregate, right? Some sort of bucketizing if you need to. So what happens typically is that in order for the arrays to show up in those traditional BI tools, you have to unwind them and flatten. And then if you choose that, hey, I need to do some aggregation, then you're kind of going backwards and reintroducing your grouping based on what you actually originally had in the documents. Not very, very efficient, not very clever. So that's why I'm super excited to share with you our plans of introducing a tool, a native visualization tool for MongoDB. The one that doesn't require you to send your data anywhere. The one that doesn't require you to do any kind of ETL wrangling, that doesn't force you to send your data to Elastic just so that you can run your visualizations using Kibana. That tool is called MongoDB Charts, and it's something that we're working on right now. And the beta is going to be available very soon. I encourage you to look for those announcements, probably in early spring when we make the charts beta available for technical preview. And please participate and give us feedback because, again, this is something that we strive on. So the key here is that you can build visualizations like this right off your data using the, the selectors, using the types of charts, and there will be a bunch of charts that would come in the box. You can also do dashboards. You can assemble dashboards together. You can also do sharing and publishing. And the most important thing is that your data doesn't have to leave MongoDB. Making your lengthy pipelines of data transformations unnecessary or much, much shorter, which again goes back and ties back to my initial premise of saying that we are trying to get out of your way and make it easier for you so that you can get your systems built faster. The last thing I'm going to talk about is MongoDB Atlas. Again, Sig had introduced it to you. It's our database as a service. There's a lot of reasons why you may want to choose it. From the perspective of self-service ability, from the perspective of automatic backups, security by default. It's also cloud agnostic. So we're running in all three clouds. And in the future, we're actually going to be cross-cloud, which is probably the first case of a database that gives you that optionality and freedom. Because we actually believe that when it comes to cloud providers, it should be as easy to join, it should be as easy to leave as it is to join. Since we launched Atlas, I don't know, it hasn't been even 2 years, I don't think so. There's a lot of innovation, a lot of improvements that we introduced. There's more that is coming. And frankly, if you need to run your MongoDB in the cloud, not using Atlas is irrational. I mean, there's just so many things related to setting up and administration and backup and all of it that you should ask yourself, is this really something? It's not like the type of work that differentiates your product. Is this something that you want to be doing on your own? No, you should be using Atlas. But again, don't take my word for it. What I have for you is a testimony from our customer. Ilan from eHarmony is here today to share his journey. And I would like to welcome him to stage. Here you go, Ilan.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning, everyone. eHarmony is an online relationship service provider. We provide a platform for users who are looking for a serious long-term relationship. We use data science, compatibility, and several other criteria to match users. Here's a quick preview of the product experience. Users can view the matches, they can view the match profile, they can communicate with other matches, and also view the activity of their matches on their feed. Our old communication system was built on a 18-step guided communication flow. A user would typically start by sending a template question to the match and wait for a response from them. Once the match replies, both the users would advance to the next stage in the communication flow, and where they get to ask a different set of questions, and eventually they'll reach the final stage where they get to exchange emails. In early 2016, reports indicated that there was a steep decline in the number of users communicating on the platform. That's when the product team came back with an idea to redesign the communication flow. The goal of the redesign was to build a new communication system which mimicked a real-time chat system like your Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. The goal was also to design a simple communication system with no logged-in stages, one which supported richer content types like emojis, GIFs, audio, video, etc., and one which is also flexible enough to adapt to any future business requirements. The old communication system was a finite state machine with data spread across 20 different tables, and the system was built on a relational database. The tables were complex, rigid, referential integrity, and complex joins were a performance killer. We definitely wanted to get rid of the relational database due to scalability and performance issue and replace that with a NoSQL solution. We chose MongoDB for its flexible schema, rich query support, scalability, and data consistency. It's a new feature that we are developing. The traffic and access pattern are completely different from the old legacy guided communication system. So we did not want to have we wanted to set up a MongoDB cluster which was neither under provision or over provision. With MongoDB Atlas, what we could do was we could set up a production ready cluster with the minimum required configuration, monitor the traffic and the performance, and if required, scale out with a single click. That's what MongoDB Atlas allows us, to scale out with a single click. Another thing that MongoDB Atlas allows us is it takes care of the common database administration tasks, like your security, data backup, recovery, and high availability. Everything, all of these tasks are automatically taken care of by MongoDB Atlas. Here's a quick look at our communication service architecture. We are on microservices. This is just a subset of the microservices that we have. We currently support like 100 microservices on our backend. This is the architecture for the communication system. We use MongoDB Atlas as our data store, and we also support, we use eJabberD to support duplex communication between the client and the server using XMPP protocol. And this is our final chat-based communication system. So users can view the conversations, the chat history between different matches. They also get to see what are the recent template questions that they sent to the match. With the flexible schema of MongoDB, we were able to support different message types. If you look here, we have a smiley, we have a favorite message, we support custom template messages, and also open chat messages. The flexible schema actually allowed us to do this. MongoDB Atlas also has excellent support for monitoring and alerting. The MongoDB Atlas exposes various system, network, and host level metrics as visual graphs and allows users to set alerts on any of those metrics. We use MongoDB's integration with Slack, email, and PagerDuty to get notified of any issues on the production cluster. Some of the common alerts that we have on the production cluster are on number of reads, writes, disk space, and number of connections in the cluster. To summarize, I would say MongoDB Atlas has been an excellent choice for this project because it helps bootstrap the project and helped us focus on the feature and not worry about the database administration tasks. It also helped us do a very free deployment to production. Thank you. With this, I will hand over to Gregory.
And there you have it, just one of the success stories of people adopting MongoDB. Our website has a bunch of case studies. You can actually go and check them out. There's so many use cases that people use MongoDB for. And we truly see ourselves as the general purpose database. So to wrap up, I would like to reiterate the main theme for this 3.6 release, which is, again, the developer productivity, making the life easier for you with all of those awesome features like real-time change streams and expressive lookups and updates to the arrays, as well as a bunch of new and improved capabilities in the tooling. And I also want to reiterate the point that I made earlier that it's all about the community. So again, the point of this event is for you guys not only to talk to the product team, not only to talk to MongoDB fellows, but also to share your experiences with each other. So I highly encourage you to talk to your neighbors and share your use case. Whether, again, you're on MongoDB already or you're just contemplating using it and evaluating MongoDB among other databases, share your use case. Learn from each other as much as you learn from us. Definitely check out, download the latest bits, or with a few clicks and a few minutes, provision the cluster in Atlas. That's super easy. Again, Compass and other tools will allow you to connect there directly, and you can get going in a matter of minutes. Literally, I kid you not. You can do it in a matter of minutes. You can do that during the breaks. And if something happens, grab one of us. But I assure you, nothing should happen. Wishing you all the best. Good luck with your learning. Good luck with your coding. And thank you very much for having us.